Hey folks, how you doing? Dave McRae here. So in this video, I want to talk about nostalgia, but specifically because, there's a lot of things that fall under the nostalgia umbrella. Specifically this, what I see as this exponential growth of unrealistic expectations as it relates to movie sequels that are made 20, 25, 30 years past their expiry date to movies that we loved as kids. Does that make sense? And, maybe it's just me, but I just, it's not that I don't think we should have any expectations or that we shouldn't expect good characters and good stories with good character development. Of course, I mean, that's, filmmaking 101 as far as I'm concerned. But I just can't help but feel that there is these, what some people are saying or these expectations that people have. I'm just like, yeah, anyways. Let's talk about it. So yesterday, as of shooting this video, it's Saturday, November the 20th. Yesterday, the new Ghostbusters movie came out. Ghostbusters Afterlife, or for all intents and purposes, Ghostbusters 3. And now I've yet to see the movie. I was going to see it yesterday in IMAX, but something came up and I had to juggle a few things around. So I'm hoping to see it either tomorrow or sometime this week. I am going to go see it though. Very excited about it. But I have seen all the trailers, all the promos. I've talked to people who've seen it. I know a lot about it. I haven't been told any spoilers, but you can put two and two together and kind of figure some things out. And I also was privy to some information about the movie in leading up to the release of the film by certain people that told me some things who had seen it early and certain people who work in certain positions. And so, I had a good grasp on what this movie was and what it was going to be. And so the positive reviews that I'm seeing for it, even if it's, lukewarm, doesn't surprise me at all. Doesn't surprise me at all. Everything that everybody is saying that is positive about this movie is exactly what I thought this movie was going to be. 100%. 100%. So I have a feeling that I'm going to absolutely feel the same way. Maybe not, but there's a very high probability that I will, just because I expected the movie to be exactly what everybody is saying, even the negative stuff. But as I was perusing online, reading reviews and listening to people, I came across certain people that gave the movie a 1 out of 5. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Don't listen. Listen, if you follow me for any length of time, you know how I feel about reviews, reviewers, critics, and things like that. But to give a movie a 1 out of 5, to give Ghostbusters Afterlife a 1 out of 5 or a 2 or 3 out of 10, you're basically saying it's one of the worst movies you've ever seen in the history of motion pictures. A 1 out of 5 says that it is a colossal and catastrophic failure of epic proportions. Now, obviously, we live in an era today where, it's very hyperbolic, right? Things are either a 10 out of 10 or it's shit. Like there's no nuance anymore. There's no gray area. I've talked about that, right? So, it doesn't surprise me at the end of the day, but I'm just like 1 out of 10. I mean, really, the only reason why they probably didn't give it a 0 out of 10 because they probably couldn't. And, if they could, they probably would, because what the hell is one more notch down at that point? But I'm like a 1 out of 10. And I'm listening to a lot of the issues that people have with it. And I'm like, well, yeah. And I don't understand what appears to be these unrealistic expectations for movies that are 30 years past their due date. I do my best to treat these long-awaited sequels, whether it's Dumb and Dumber 2, 20 years later, whether it's Ghostbusters Afterlife, 31 years later, whether it's Lethal Weapon 5, soon to be on the horizon. That's going to be like, 23 or 4 years later. I treat it like a reunion concert. It's like, hey, honey, Ghostbusters is doing a reunion concert. You want to go see them? You remember? Yeah, let's go see them. They're not going to look the same. They're not going to sound the same. They're not going to sound and look like, or sound like they did on your fucking 45 in the 80s. They're not going to, it's just fun. It's just good, warm fun. It's not to be taken so fucking seriously, but there's a lot of people that do, and there's nothing wrong with that. And maybe some people might look at me and say, we don't think your standards are high enough. But if you follow me for any length of time, I have incredibly high standards. But I think we need to direct our expectations to the appropriate situations, to the appropriate, films and for the right audience. We have to know what, there's an old saying where know who your audience is. You don't go into a kindergarten class talking nuclear physics. I mean, it's just, it doesn't make any sense, right? In this kind of, and again, that I'm not saying that fan service and nostalgia should replace any sort of character development or story. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that when you're making a sequel that's 30 years past its due date, because really Ghostbusters 3 should have come out in the early 90s, certainly by the end of the decade, by the end of the 90s. But once Groundhog Day happened and Bill Murray and Harold Ramis had a falling out, that was unlikely going to happen. And now with Ramis passed away and all that kind of stuff, I mean, take it for what it is, and everything I'm hearing, I'm like, that's exactly what it should be this many years later. Folks, I hate to break it to you. Once you leave, you can't go back. That doesn't mean once you leave Walmart, you can't go back to Walmart. I'm just teasing you. It means that once you leave a certain era of your life, no matter how many times you try to go back to it, no matter how many times you try to replicate it, no matter how many times you try to get that exact moment, that exact feeling in the exact same way, under the exact same circumstances, under the exact same conditions, it's not going to happen. It's over. It's over. And I just, again, that doesn't mean that nostalgia and fan service should replace quality work, quality stories and characters. But sometimes I'm like, what do people expect? It's Ghostbusters 3 30 years later, guys. I mean, it's not Ghostbusters 3 in 91. That's a different level of expectations. That's a whole different ball game there. Whole different ball game. But you're telling me I'm going to go to a concert and watch somebody play 30 years after they last played and expect them to sound like they did in 89? I mean, and when I say I'm not talking about the guys specifically, Ernie Hudson, Dan Aykroyd, and Bill Murray, who we know are in the movie, obviously. I'm just talking about as a whole, the feeling, the approach, the stuff. Yes, it's going to be full of fan service. Yes, it's going to be full of nostalgia because it's a tribute. It's a tip of the hat. It's a swan song. It's a reunion tour, and that's all it is. It's not. I mean, look. I know there's a mid-credit scene and an after-credit scene. And I know that Hollywood always hopes that this could turn into something. Of course, money, of course, 100%. I get it. I do the same thing. But at the end of the day, this is what it is, and I think that's why I enjoyed The Force Awakens so much. I think that's why I enjoyed Dumb and Dumber 2, not as much as the original, of course, but I enjoyed it. I was like, yes, this is what it is, and it's just, it was fun to revisit them again. Okay, I'm good, I have a feeling I'm going to feel the same way about Lethal Weapon 5 or whether they do a Goonies 2 or whatever they decide to do way past its expiry date. You have to, you can't treat nostalgia and fan service across everything the same. There's different circumstances and situations where it's okay for this to be this, but it's not okay for it to be like that in this situation. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? At least that's how I feel about it. Now, again, some of you might think my expectations are not high enough for it. But I don't understand it. It's like, guys, it's Ghostbusters 3, 30 years later with one of them dead. It's like, they're in their 70s for God's sakes. Of course they're going to, like, I read a reviewer that was like, that said, I'm really disappointed that it didn't focus on the, Ernie and Dan and Bill and that it was more about this, it was more about that. And I'm like, well, because they're in their 70s. I mean, yes, there's a certain fan base, like me, guys over 40, that would totally pay to see 2 hours of these old farts running around in proton packs. Of course. But you know, when you're trying to appeal to a general movie-going audience, it's just not going to work. It's not going to work. And by all accounts, everything I'm hearing, Jason knocked it out of the park. Jason Reitman. And he delivered a film that is heartwarming, that is nostalgic, that is exactly what you would want from a movie that's 30 years past its due date. And listen, we would probably, and again, I haven't seen the movie yet, but we should thank our lucky stars that Ghostbusters Afterlife is as good as it appears to be. And I'm only saying appears because, again, I haven't seen it yet, but by all accounts, it appears to be as good as it is. We should be thankful for that. It's not easy making a movie 30 years past its expiry date and delivering a decent quality film. What do you expect? Guys, this is like going to see AC/DC now and expecting Brian Johnson to belt out Back in Black like he did in 1980. It ain't gonna happen, okay? It's not gonna happen. And again, when I say that, I'm talking about the movie as a whole. It's over. Look at yourself in the mirror. You're over 40. It's done. It's over. Enjoy the reunion tour and be thankful you saw it. You know, and that's where my expectations are for Lethal Weapon 5. That's where my expectations are for a Goonies 2, if they ever made one. That's where my expectations are for Indiana Jones 5. That's where my expectations are. And listen, if they can deliver an amazing movie with great characters and story, great. But at the end of the day, it's 80-year-old fucking Indiana Jones. You know, what do we want? You know what we want? We want a good, heartwarming story that gets us in the feels, that is just a solid movie. It doesn't need to be the next coming. It doesn't need to affect us or penetrate us like it did our childhood and, you know, shoot itself into the stratosphere of pop culture zeitgeist. It doesn't need to do that. It just needs to make us go, all right, all right, all right. That's it. It's 2021. But again, this type of approach, this mindset, I believe is for movies like this. And I feel that a lot of people are painting nostalgia and expectations too broadly. You know, again, these kind of expectations and these kind of maybe more lenient expectations wouldn't be the right thing or the right approach with certain other situations, right? But in this kind of a situation with sequels way fast, guys, come on, you know, come on. A 1 out of 5. A 1 out of 5. Get out of here. I can't take you seriously. I can't take anybody seriously. A 1 out of 5. Get the fuck out of here. Anyways, folks, my name's Dave McRae. Comment below and let me know your thoughts. Do you agree with me? Do you feel the same way? Are you seeing that as well, where you're kind of like, guys, like, I get it, I understand, but come on, this is, you know, and hey, and guess what? It's actually good. You know, like, come on. You know, or are you just like, no, it should be fucking this, it should be this, and it should be this, and fuck that shit. I want this, and I want it now. Maybe you're in that camp. I don't know. Maybe you're somewhere in between. I realize that was two extremes. But comment below and let me know your thoughts. My name's Dave McRae. If you want to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, there's the links right there below my name. Also, the links are in the description. Check them out until your heart's content, and when your heart is content, check them out again. Comment below and let me know your thoughts, folks. Anyways, in the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you soon. Cheers.